You're listening to the Matador Beat.
Welcome, Red Raiders, to the Matador Beat. I'm Chana Vargas, the Opinions Editor, joined by Sarah Self-Walbrick. How are you today, Sarah?
I'm well. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So this is episode 4 of Women in Journalism, and I'm so excited to have you join me today, especially since you are a tech alumni. Is it good to be back a little bit?
Yeah, it's always nice. I actually I teach as an adjunct instructor in the journalism department as well, so I'm here twice a week anyway, but it's always nice to be on campus.
Right? Okay, so can you give us a quick synopsis about yourself, like who you are, where you started, high school, even go far back as that?
Okay, no, we can do that. Okay, so I am Sarah Self-Walbrick. I am the senior reporter at Texas Tech Public Media, which is the Lubbock NPR station. I got my start in journalism back in high school. I'm a Lubbock local. So when I was in high school, I had the opportunity to take classes and start working at the Lubbock Independent School District's TV station. Within a week of starting my first production class there, I was offered a segment on their newscast, and it kind of just snowballed from there. And, I got interested really young, and it just worked out. And so I worked for LISD TV from the time that I was 15 years old until through my freshman year of college here at Texas Tech. And then after that, after I took news writing, which is a very important class for any journalism majors, I figured out that I really preferred writing to what I had been doing with TV news. And so that's when I kind of switched my focus. And at that point, pretty quick after news writing, I started working for the Hub at TTU, which was an online news organization that was very different then than it is now. It's still around, just in a different way. But yeah, and so I produced several different stories there and ended up through the Hub. I was able to go to grad school. I was given a very, very good opportunity once I finished up my 2 bachelor's degrees in electronic media and communication and journalism to stay on and get my master's in mass communications and run the Hub for 2 years. So I did that. And that led to freelancing opportunity at the Lubbock Avalanche Journal, which led to a full-time job. So I was at the AJ for 3 years, officially as the business reporter, but also everything else because a small newsroom. And then I've been with Texas Tech Public Media for 18-ish months now. It started that job at the beginning of the pandemic. So it's been a wild ride.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
One of my next questions is just, did you always know you wanted to go into journalism?
I am one of the rare people who truly I am so, so lucky that I have always known what I wanted to do. There was never a question that I would do anything other than journalism. It was instilled in me at a very, very young age to value news and to pay attention to what was going on. I spent a lot of time with my grandparents and my great-grandmother. And I mean, they were the type that we watched the Today Show, and then we watched the noon news, and then we watched the 5 o'clock. And if I was still up to 10 o'clock, my granny read the newspaper every single day, front to back, twice, to make sure she didn't miss anything. And so that was a really appealing career to me early on, and I was able to pursue it and haven't looked back.
Yeah, that's amazing. Especially because, like you said, there's one lucky one.
No, seriously, I know I'm the rarity of people who knew what I wanted to do, and again, was lucky enough to be able to pursue it.
That's the biggest thing. I think a lot of people will just be like, "Well, I thought about it."
Exactly.
I didn't go through with it.
Exactly.
That's incredible, especially since you are Lubbock local and you went up those steps. That's so cool. And I didn't know about LISD?
Yes, LISD TV, which is kind of a mouthful.
Right. Do they broadcast on TV?
Yes, they do. So they have their own station, Channel 12, and they produce a newscast still, which is pretty fantastic.
Yeah, sometimes during work when we're, printing or laying out, I'll just flip through the channels on the TV, and I'm like, is that high schoolers? Like,
it totally is. No, it's incredible that the school district has that opportunity for students. I met my husband in that program.
Really?
He works on the PBS side of public media. So he also is using, skills that we learned in that program, which I think is really incredible.
So cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, I guess since you've done a little bit of everything, what would you say is your difference between, radio journalism, print, or broadcasting?
There is a lot of difference. And I don't know if I really understood that until I made the switch from print to radio. So obviously there's a difference between all of these mediums. For me as a professional journalist, I think of TV news as, quick hitters. Yes, we do see some occasional kind of more in-depth or investigative pieces, but really, those are stories that reporters are turning in a day. It gives you the highlights. But print journalism is better, I think, in general, about going deeper on subjects. There's a lot more flexibility to do stuff like that. I loved working in print journalism. I would have made a career out of it if that was doable in 2021. And then radio is a completely different thing. So
I don't know about radio.
So in my job, I focus on feature stories for the most part. So something that is 4 to 6 minutes, at least for the audio package. And then there's obviously some web elements to that as well. And I produce all my own stuff from beginning to end. But what I like about radio is I think it's a lot more personal. It does feel a lot more intimate and like you're just having a conversation. And there's something so special about getting to share the audio from an event. It helps take your listener there. And it's just a much more intimate experience, I think, between the media and our audience. And I really, really love that about audio storytelling.
That is pretty cool. So when you do a feature story, do you have guests come on or do you just reiterate kind of what they say?
So a feature story is going to be out in the field, recording stuff. So let me think of a good recent example. I guess the last feature I produced was about the closure of Dupree Elementary School, which is the oldest school in Lubbock. And I was following the efforts of people interested, stakeholders, in trying to save the school. And so I went to hours and hours of different community meetings, had my recorder on the entire time. And then I did separate interviews with people to be able to mix all of that together. So for that story, that looked like me having 4 or 5 hours of audio to get down to 4 to 5 minutes, which has always been the more challenging parts, but turned out great. It was a compelling story. But yeah, it's a lot of work to have to do all of that. And again, especially from beginning to end, some of the bigger NPR station affiliates are going to have people who can help with, let's say, the audio editing side of things, stuff like that. But we're truly one women's shows over in my newsroom, which is pretty cool.
That's amazing. Love it. So would you say someone that wants to get into radio would have to still know how to write, especially write?
Absolutely. It's a different kind of writing, that's for sure. But a lot of my writing skills that I developed both as a student and my time in the newspaper world has definitely translated well to radio. It is a very different writing style, though. And I'll be honest, it took me several months to get used to it. But I'm getting there. And it's fun. Radio is a lot more conversational. So it's fun to just talk. That's how I write my scripts now. It's like, how would if I was just telling this story to a friend, how would I do that? And that kind of guides my script writing.
Right. I love that. All right. What has been your favorite story to talk about?
So I am known for my coverage of the Rager Dykes Auto Group saga. Again, I was the business reporter at the Lubbock Avalanche Journal for 3 years. So I covered the Rager Dykes Auto Group before the implosion. I broke the news that they filed for bankruptcy and it just snowballed from there. So that's been my story the past 3 years. And again, that's what I'm known for is for my coverage of that that issue in particular. I'll be honest though, I mean, the stories that I enjoy doing more, some people may find stuff like this boring. I love going to our city council meetings, and just keeping up with, what our elected officials are doing and how that impacts my neighbors. And yeah, exactly. And I think that's more important work. And that's where my heart is covering issues that, again, affect my neighbors, because I really like to think of it that way.
Yeah. Well, as you say that, is there anything like in the future you want to do with your career? Is it like going into more political things, or?
That's a good question. I am a strong advocate for local journalism. I have no desire to go to New York or DC or anything like that. I think I could see myself maybe going up to the state level. But beyond that, my heart is very much in local communities, because I think that's just really important work that has to be done.
If someone else doesn't do it, who does it?
Exactly. Well, and it's nothing against national media, but we all know that, stories start on the local level and get picked up elsewhere. I just think that, I just think the real work happens on the ground in local almost communities. Like exactly. And that's what I want to be a part of.
Of course. No, I love that. Especially because I think people do, especially with journalism, I think people are like, where do you want to go? I want to go to New York. I want to go and work for Washington. It's like, all right. But there are stories that are not being told down here.
Absolutely.
That's incredible.
Absolutely. And I think, I think it's just about where your heart's at. And it's absolutely 100%. Local stories for me.
100%. Do you think you're going to do radio?
Radio is fantastic. And I do feel very stable in my job. I think there's some really interesting public media models, nonprofit journalism models out there now. I definitely think that's the future of the industry. And so I am interested in kind of staying with that kind of news organization, but we'll see where I end up.
You mentioned print earlier that, we do know print it's one of those things that are like, I hate saying dying, I don't want to say
I don't think dying's fair.
Yeah, right.
It's
changing, transforming, like
that doesn't feel quite serious enough either. So, in my 3 years at the AJ, we went through 3 owners. I survived multiple rounds of layoffs. And it's a very, very scary time to be in that industry. But there's so many people who go and do the work every day and are doing a fantastic job. And I hope that the business model can figure out how to allow them to do that.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah I love that. So, of course, as women in journalism, I gotta ask, has there been any struggles that you face as a woman in this industry? Just a quick side note. Sarah's mentioned before that her colleagues, have been giving comments on their voice during broadcasting or radio, because I guess that's just all they can, No,
this is totally a thing. So I have not experienced this yet. But a lot of my other women colleagues, in the radio world and NPR network are constantly getting emails or phone calls or whatever about their voice. And that could be it's a couple of different reasons, I guess.
Can you say any reason?
It's usually, it's what's called vocal fry, which is just kind of a certain tone of your voice that women have more often. Okay. Also, sometimes it can just be the tone of your voice, the pitch of your voice, a lot of things that you don't have a lot of control over. Accents, that can be a big thing. And of course, that one's not as gender specific. But but statistically, there's research that backs this up. Women journalists get more feedback like that than their male coworkers. So that's something that we have to deal with. I think when I first started in my career, I was still young. I'm still in my 20s. I shouldn't say that, but when I was younger, I will never forget kind of starting to go out to things, and 2 different occasions, I was called that little girl reporter.
Oh.
by two different people. I don't know how I got stuck with that. And at the time I was able to kind of laugh it off.
Right.
But now I don't find that as endearing.
Yeah.
So it's things like that. It's kind of the casual, unnecessary commentary that I've had to deal with the most. Yeah. I do think I've gotten past that quite a bit. Yeah. But I think about that a lot. I very much just laughed that off at the time, and I shouldn't have. I am an educated professional woman. I shouldn't be called a little girl reporter. So yeah, it's things like that. I know though that, I've been very fortunate that in all of the newsrooms I've been in, I have not faced any serious issues. But again, kind of like, knowing that this is what I wanted to do my whole life, I also know that I'm rare in that respect as well. So, yeah.
Do you believe that for this type of job, women, well, I would say everyone has to have thicker skin?
You do. I'll be honest, that's something I wouldn't necessarily say that I have. I take things very personally. And so I think it gets better as you get older. Okay. That's good. It does. I promise it does. But it's also, it's just kind of, you do have to have thick skin. You also have to know how to take care of yourself. Right. I joke, and people know what I'm very online. Everyone knows what I mean when I say that. And putting myself out there in the ways that I do sometimes, I don't know, and just putting my work out there, it does, obviously that comes with backlash. Right. And I've gotten better about being able to brush that off, but it doesn't make it any easier every time it happens. So I don't know. It's always something.
What advice would you give to someone that is wanting to, do exactly what you do? Would you say, besides the thick skin, but is there anything like path-wise they should follow, or, things to always remember? Yeah,
for sure. So for me, the biggest tip that I give students in particular is to just take every opportunity you can when you have it. But also with that caveat, I've recently heard some bad advice circulating that, you should take whatever first job you get offered or whatever gets your foot in the door. I think that's really bad advice. I think you should also look out for yourself. And if it's a job that's beneath you or that you are going to be miserable in, don't take it. It is not worth it. So I think
almost knowing your worth.
Yes, that's super important. Knowing your worth is very, very important. And also knowing your limits and your capabilities. But again, that's stuff that's easier said than done. I would be lying if I said that I was, I graduated and I had my life completely together, because that's obviously like not the case. But that's my biggest thing is look for the opportunities that are right for you and that are going to benefit you. Get diverse experience. I am very, very lucky that I've done TV, print, and now radio. I have some random PR experience as well. And that's truly just because of what's been thrown at me. But I'm very lucky to kind of know a little bit about everything. That's really helped me in my career. So I think that's the biggest thing is getting diverse experience, but also knowing your worth and taking care of yourself, because you should be number one priority.
I love that. Well, thank you so much, Sarah. That's all the questions I have for you. So thank you so much for the segment.
Of course.
Do you have any last remarks?
I think that's good.
You're good?
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much again for joining me. That's all the time we have, Red Raiders. Be sure to pick up your copy of the Daily Toreador this coming Thursday and keep up to date with all things tech on our website, dailytoreador.com. Also, be sure to interact with us and the rest of the staffers on our Twitters. You're listening to the Matador Beat.
You're listening to a production of the Matador Beat.